My name is Tejo. I'm an undergrad student at University of Arizona. Here, I'm majoring in geology, which the study of rocks. I am from Indonesia, one of the most tectonically active region in the world. Being a geologist has always fascinated me, especially in understanding how the Earth's shape significantly changes over time. I do believe there were so many factors that have influenced the face of Earth, and they still are. I like to spend my time on reading geology stuff. Mostly, it is all about climate change, where El Nino is being mentioned. But hey, what does it mean? Is it connected to a periodic disaster in my own country, Indonesia, which we experienced an extreme dry period causing severe forest fires in the region? Hmm, very interesting. I have to find the answers. I met with Fahad Bedgeis, a junior student who studied geoscience. Hey, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, take a seat, please.
Yeah, sure.
So, how do you define El Nino?
Well, before talking about El Nino, I just want to mention the normal non-El Nino conditions in which we have a set of winds called easterlies, also known as trade winds. They blow from the east to the west, piling up a warm surface water in the western part of the Pacific Ocean. And that part is going to be called the warm pool. On the other hand, in the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean, upwelling of cold water will take place, and that will also form the cold tongue. What El Nino is basically warming of the eastern and the central parts of the Pacific Ocean. It has this sweet pattern of existence. It exists maybe every 3 to 7 years. On the other hand, what La Nina is basically the opposite of El Nino, which is cooling the eastern and the central parts of the Pacific Ocean. It usually takes place after the occurrence of El Nino.
Will you explain me more about the effect of El Nino?
Well, I'm not an expert in this field, but what I know about El Nino, that it could affect the weather all around the world, and more specifically in two regions, which are Peru and Indonesia. Well, I hope that answered your questions.
Very well. Thank you for your time, actually. I hope I didn't interrupt your lab.
No, it's all good, man.
Alright, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
After meeting with Fahad, I learned that during normal conditions, there is a wind called easterlies or trade winds blowing from east to west and create warm pool on Indonesian side and cold tongue on Peru side. But still, what's the effect of El Nino? I think I know the right guy. His name is Majid. I've met Fahad today, and he told me a little bit about El Nino, but he didn't say much about the effects. Do you think you can tell me about it?
So El Nino is a phenomenon where normal conditions reverse. So it's expected to have major climatic, economical, and biological effects. One of the major consequences that can be observed during El Nino conditions is the change in the global climate. Areas that are typically cold and or wet becomes dry and warm. This makes the areas that are normally receive large amounts of rain experience extreme drought. And that's also true for areas that are warm and dry, which receive abnormally high levels of rain during El Nino. On the biological level, El Nino conditions also cause some changes in the level of primary productivity of different parts of the ocean. For example, during normal conditions, the eastern part of the Pacific has high level of primary productivity, while the western part has low level of primary productivity. However, during El Nino times, the conditions change, and therefore the eastern part of the Pacific becomes poor in primary productivity, while the western part becomes rich in primary productivity. These changes lead to the third major effect of El Nino conditions, which is the effect on the economy of coastal cities that depends hugely on the fishery industry. Because of the changes in the levels of primary productivity, the number of fishes will be affected, and therefore, those cities that happen to be near low productivity areas will suffer hugely from low amounts of fishes.
Well, one more question for you. How do you explain me about the mechanism of El Nino? How that happened first?
Well, I don't know much about it, but you can ask Idris. He will definitely tell you a lot of information about that.
Alright, I guess that's the end of it. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate it.
sit on the ground.
Please tell me about the
Excuse me. Allow me to stop you here. How did the El Nino work? So, how it works in normal conditions is like we have Indonesia in the west and Peru in the east. And how it works is wind is usually trade winds, which are the easterlies, are blowing from east to west. So warm water will be transferring from east to west. So we will have a warm pool in Indonesia and a cold tongue in Peru. How did Peru water surface is cold? Is when the upwelling bring the deep water on top after the warm water get transferred into the Indonesia. So Indonesia will have more fisheries. However, they will have wet and rainy days. However, Peru will have dry and no fisheries. So El Nino works when these trade winds gets weakened by the Coriolis effect, which makes the warm water transferred to Peru and cold water, and so it will leave us with cold water in Indonesia. And this is how El Nino works. Let's talk about predictions. So this is a graph of means and anomalies. We have both. So the anomaly graph shows like arrows get smaller and smaller, which can cause which is caused by Coriolis effect, which weakens the trade winds. However, the anomaly graph shows how water really transfer from east to west. However, the warm water will be transferred then from Indonesia to Peru, which means it will go from east to west. So the warm water will be in Peru. And these are measured by the buoy device, which will measure the temperature on sea surface and tell us if it's unusual weather or not.
Hey, what's up, Abdullah? How you doing?
Doing great. What are you guys talking about?
Oh yeah, I was just about to tell him about water circulation. Would you do that for me, please?
Yeah, for sure. Local circulation is when warm water travels from west to the east. At the same time, low pressure and rain follow the warm water. That makes the thermocline to be steeper, to be higher in east and deeper in the west.
Now, I understand. El Nino is responsible for the drought and forest fire in Indonesia. It is the one that contributes to a change in the sea surface temperature and also atmospheric pressure. And therefore, cold tongue gets warmer, which leads to unusual rainfall, whereas Indonesian side will experience descending hot air from high pressure, and so it results in dry climate.